Alien woman was paralyzed for a decade until a human built her legs. The fallen star. The great warship Celestial Fist trembled as another plasma barrage struck its starboard shields. Commander Naira Keldor steadied herself, her silver eyes narrowing as she focused on the swarm of enemy vessels circling her fleet. With a subtle gesture of her fingers, she manipulated the gravitational field around an incoming torpedo, sending it careening back toward the Vexar battlecruiser that had launched it. "Direct hit, Commander," reported Lieutenant Giler from the tactical station. "Their forward shields are failing." Naira nodded, feeling the familiar rush of power that came from wielding her people's most revered ability. The Astrarians had evolved in the crushing gravity of a dense planetoid, developing the natural ability to sense and manipulate gravitational fields, a gift that had propelled them to galactic prominence and military superiority. "Target their propulsion systems," she ordered, rising from her command chair. "I'll handle their reinforcements." She stepped onto the gravity platform at the center of the bridge, a circular dais designed to amplify an Astrarian commander's abilities. As the platform activated, Naira closed her eyes and extended her consciousness outward, feeling the subtle gravitational signatures of 12 Vexar fighters approaching from the nebula's edge. With practiced precision, she began to compress the space around them, creating micro-singularities that would distort their flight paths and crush their hulls. But something was wrong. The familiar connection between her mind and the gravitational forces felt stretched thin, almost frayed. "Commander," Giler's alarmed voice barely registered, "they've deployed quantum disruptors, our sensors." The explosion came without warning, a blinding flash followed by a concussive wave that shattered the platform beneath Naira's feet. Pain exploded through her skull as the gravitational feedback slammed into her neural pathways. She felt herself falling, the bridge tilting sideways as emergency systems blared. The last thing she remembered was the horrifying silence in her mind where her connection to gravitational forces had always hummed. "Commander Keldor, can you hear me?" Naira blinked slowly, the harsh medical bay light sending sharp needles of pain through her head. The face of Dr. Vurin came into focus, his expression grave beneath his crest of silver-blue hair. "The fleet," she rasped. "Secure, Admiral Thenrose took command after you fell," the Vexar retreated. Relief washed through her, quickly followed by the realization that something fundamental was missing. The constant awareness of gravitational fields that had accompanied her since childhood gone. "My abilities," she whispered, already knowing the answer from the doctor's averted gaze. "The quantum disruptors targeted the specialized neural pathways that allow us to sense gravitational forces," he explained clinically. "In most of the affected crew, the damage was minimal, but you were directly connected to the amplification platform when it overloaded." Naira forced herself to sit up despite the doctor's protests. "It will return," she stated firmly. "Begin the neural regeneration protocols." Dr. Vurin hesitated. "Commander, I've already consulted with the Celestial Medical Authority. Your neural pathways weren't just damaged, they were fundamentally altered. The current understanding of our regenerative medicine cannot address this type of injury." The words struck like physical blows, but Naira's face remained impassive. 20 years of military discipline didn't vanish with her abilities. "I see," she said simply. "When can I resume command?" The awkward silence that followed told her everything. 3 months later, Naira stood at the viewport of a civilian transport watching as it descended toward the remote outpost planet of Vantes. Below, endless forests of purple-hued vegetation surrounded scattered settlements, a forgotten corner of space where various species coexisted far from the centers of galactic power. Her resignation from the Astrarian fleet hadn't technically been forced, but the message had been clear. Without gravitational abilities, she couldn't command. Without command, she had no place in Astrarian society, where one's social standing was directly tied to the strength of their gravitational manipulation. Former Commander Naira Keldor, now simply Citizen Keldor, had become an embarrassment, a living reminder that even the mightiest could fall. The High Council had been generous with her pension but explicit in their suggestion that she seek opportunities elsewhere. The transport landed with a gentle thud and Naira gathered her meager belongings. She had selected Vantes precisely because it hosted one of the smallest Astrarian populations in settled space. Here, perhaps, she could escape the pitying glances and whispered conversations that followed her on the homeworld. The settlement of New Haven was a chaotic blend of architectural styles. The crystalline spires favored by Tellurians stood alongside the organic curves of myriad dwellings and the utilitarian blocks of human construction. Naira made her way toward the modest dwelling she had purchased sight unseen, navigating unfamiliar streets with the help of a basic holomap. She was nearly at her destination when the explosion knocked her off her feet. Rolling instantly into a defensive crouch, Naira scanned for threats, hand moving automatically to where her service weapon would have been. Black smoke billowed from a low building just ahead her building, according to the map. Before she could process this, a figure burst from the smoke-filled entrance. A human male, his face and arms smudged with soot, wearing a scorched lab coat over casual clothing. He was coughing violently and carrying what appeared to be a smoldering piece of equipment. "Temporal stabilizers," he shouted, apparently to no one. "That's what was missing. The quantum field needs temporal anchoring to prevent cascade failure." Then he noticed Naira and abruptly stopped. "Oh, hello, are you the new neighbor? Terribly sorry about the smoke, minor miscalculation in the resonance frequency." Naira stared at him, momentarily speechless. "That's my residence," she finally said, pointing to the building behind him. The human blinked, then looked back at the smoke-belching structure. "Well, technically the East Wing is yours. I'm in the West Wing, Devin Mercer, by the way, independent quantum engineer." He shifted the smoldering device to his left arm and extended his right hand, apparently for some human greeting ritual. Naira ignored the gesture. "You've damaged my property before I've even taken possession." "Damaged is a strong word," Devin replied, withdrawing his hand without offense. "Temporarily altered the atmospheric composition, perhaps, but the environmental filters will clear it in." He checked a device on his wrist, approximately 17 minutes. A small crowd of locals had gathered, but notably none seemed particularly alarmed by the explosion. "Does this happen often?" Naira asked, gesturing toward the smoke. "Define often," Devin responded with a sheepish grin. Before she could answer, emergency responders arrived, a single Tellurian in minimal safety gear who looked more annoyed than concerned. "Mercer," the Tellurian sighed, "third time this month. The council's going to revoke your research permit if you keep this up." "Breakthrough progress requires occasional setbacks, Orin," Devin replied cheerfully. "Besides, I've nearly perfected the quantum field stabilizer. Once it works, we'll revolutionize gravitational technology across the sector." At the mention of gravitational technology, Naira's attention sharpened. "What exactly are you working on?" Devin's eyes lit up with enthusiasm. "Only the most significant advancement in artificial gravitational manipulation since the Astrarians shared their technology. Instead of just simulating gravitational effects, my system actually generates localized quantum fields that can be shaped and controlled without requiring biological neural interfaces." For the first time in months, Naira felt a spark of something beyond resignation, a dangerous glimmer of hope. "I have experience with gravitational systems," she said carefully. "Perhaps we should discuss your research further once my living quarters are habitable again." Devin beamed at her. "Absolutely, and I promise not to explode anything during our conversation." "Well, probably not." "Well, I'll try my best." As they stood watching the smoke gradually dissipate, Naira wondered if the universe had just offered her a bizarre second chance, delivered through an eccentric human with a penchant for unintentional explosions. A fallen star and a quantum dreamer, it was hardly the alliance legends were made from. Yet somehow, standing in the aftermath of a minor disaster on a backwater planet, Naira Keldor felt something shift within her, like the first tremor before a gravitational wave changes everything in its path. "Quantum weaving. Focus on the sphere, try to feel its mass," Devin said, his voice steady and encouraging. Naira sat cross-legged on the laboratory floor, her eyes fixed on the small metal orb suspended in the quantum field generator. Sweat beaded on her forehead, the silver markings along her temples glistening with effort. 10 weeks had passed since their first meeting, and Devin's West Wing laboratory had become her second home. There's nothing to feel, she replied through gritted teeth. It's like reaching into emptiness. Devin made a note on his tablet. That's actually promising. Before the accident, you sensed gravitational fields intuitively, right? Like how humans sense temperature or pressure. Naira nodded, relaxing her posture as Devin deactivated the field generator. The metal sphere dropped into its cushioned holder with a soft thud. The neural pathways that let you do that naturally are damaged, he continued, but my theory is that we can bypass them entirely. Instead of trying to restore your biological gravity sense, we create an artificial interface, a new way for your brain to perceive and manipulate quantum fields. He moved to a cluttered workbench and retrieved what looked like a circlet of interwoven silver and black filaments, ready to try the next prototype. Naira eyed the device with cautious optimism. The first 3 versions had caused nothing but blinding headaches, but each failure had taught them something. What modifications did you make? I recalibrated the quantum resonators based on your neural scans, Devin explained, gently placing the circlet around Naira's head. And I incorporated some Tellurian biotechnology to create a more organic connection. In theory, it should translate quantum field data into something your brain can interpret, like learning a new language. As the device powered on, Naira felt the familiar hum of energy against her skin. She closed her eyes, waiting for the inevitable pain. Instead, something different happened. A subtle sensation like ripples in still water flowed across her consciousness, not the natural gravity sense she'd been born with, but something adjacent, artificial yet somehow comprehensible. I can feel something, she whispered, afraid that speaking too loudly might break the tenuous connection. Devin's eyes widened. The sphere, can you sense it? Naira extended her awareness toward where she knew the metal orb rested. There, a distortion in the ripples, a presence where before there had been only emptiness. Yes, she breathed, it's faint but distinct. Devin suppressed the urge to whoop with excitement. Try to move it, not like you used to. Don't think about gravitational manipulation, think about pushing the ripples toward it. Naira focused, imagining herself directing the strange new sensations toward the sphere. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then, almost imperceptibly, the metal orb trembled. It moved, Devin exclaimed, forgetting his own advice about staying calm. Just a fraction of a millimeter, but it definitely moved. The circlet suddenly sparked, and Naira gasped as the connection abruptly severed. The device powered down with a discouraging whine. Quantum coherence failure, Devin muttered, quickly removing the circlet from Naira's head. But that was progress, real progress. Let me analyze the data. As Devin rushed to his console, Naira remained seated on the floor, stunned by what had just occurred. For the first time since the explosion aboard her ship, she had touched gravitational forces, not through her natural abilities but through technology. It was alien and limited, yet the implications were staggering. It worked, she said softly. Devin looked up from his analysis, his face split by a wide grin. It worked. News traveled quickly in New Haven. By the following day, curious glances and whispered conversations followed Naira through the settlement's market district as she gathered supplies for the lab. She had grown accustomed to being recognized. Even on this remote world, the fall of Commander Naira Keldor had been noteworthy, but something had changed. They know, she remarked to Devin when she returned. Someone saw the test yesterday. Devin shrugged, not looking up from the circlet he was modifying. Small community, few secrets, does it bother you? If word reaches the Astrarian High Council. Would that be so terrible? Devin interrupted, finally meeting her gaze. Your people prize gravitational manipulation above all else. Wouldn't they celebrate a technology that could restore abilities to the injured? Naira placed her purchases on a clear section of workbench. You don't understand Astrarian politics. Our social hierarchy is based on natural ability. Those born with strong gravitational talents rise to leadership positions. Those with weaker talents serve in lesser roles. And those who lose their talents get shipped off to backwater planets, Devin added pointedly. Naira didn't argue the point. If artificial augmentation became possible, it would undermine the entire system. The council would view it as destabilizing. All the best innovations are, Devin grinned, returning to his work. Besides, we're still a long way from anything practical. Yesterday's test was promising, but the quantum coherence collapsed after just a few seconds. We need something more robust. Naira moved to the laboratory's small viewport, gazing at the purple-hued forest that surrounded New Haven. How long before we can try again? 2 days, maybe 3. I need to recalibrate the quantum field stabilizers and... A sharp knock interrupted him. Naira tensed instinctively, her hand reaching for a weapon she no longer carried. Devin moved to the door, checking the security monitor. "It's Magistrate Oren," he said, referring to the Tellurian emergency responder they'd met on Naira's first day, "and he's not alone." The door slid open to reveal Oren, accompanied by 2 Astrarians in the distinctive blue-gray uniforms of diplomatic attaches. "Citizen Keldor," said the taller of the two, her silver eyes taking in Naira's civilian clothing with poorly disguised disapproval. "I am Attaché Lysara. This is Attaché Vorn. We represent the interests of the Astrarian High Council on Vantes." Naira straightened her posture automatically, years of military discipline asserting themselves. "What brings council representatives to a private residence?" "Reports of unauthorized gravitational technology research," Lysara replied crisply. "The High Council maintains strict protocols regarding such matters, as you well know." Devin stepped forward. "I'm conducting perfectly legal quantum engineering research. I have all the necessary permits from the Vantes Scientific Authority." Magistrate Oren cleared his throat. "That's true, but your permits don't cover bioneural interfaces or gravitational manipulation technology." "We're not manipulating gravity," Devin argued. "We're exploring quantum field theories with potential applications in various industries." Vorn, the shorter Astrarian, moved further into the laboratory, examining the equipment with critical eyes. "This appears to be designed for interfacing with Astrarian neural patterns," he observed, pointing to the circlet on Devin's workbench. "The Council is concerned about unsanctioned research involving Astrarian physiology," Lysara stated, "particularly research involving former military personnel with access to classified information." The accusation hung in the air. Naira felt a familiar anger rising, the same righteous indignation that had fueled her during battle. "I have violated no confidentiality agreements," she said coldly, "and I am a citizen with full rights to participate in scientific research." "Of course," Lysara replied with artificial politeness. "However, the Council requests that you both submit your research for official review before proceeding further. A simple matter of protocol." Devin and Naira exchanged glances. They both knew what official review would mean: months of bureaucratic delays at best, complete shutdown at worst. "We'll need to consult with legal advisors before agreeing to any review process," Devin said carefully. "As is your right," Vorn acknowledged. "In the meantime, we must ask that all experimentation cease until the matter is resolved." Magistrate Oren stepped forward, looking uncomfortable but determined. "I'm required to place a regulatory seal on your equipment, Dr. Mercer. Breaking it would constitute a violation of Vantes law." After the officials departed, leaving Devin's primary equipment. Under electronic seals, silence filled the laboratory. "They were ready," Naira finally said. "They knew exactly what we were doing." Devin slumped into a chair. "Someone's been watching us, probably from the beginning." "The Council fears change," Naira murmured, "especially change that might disrupt the established order." Devin's expression shifted from disappointment to determination. "Well, they made a critical error." "What's that?" He gestured toward a storage room at the back of the laboratory. "They sealed my primary quantum field generator, the one I use for official projects, but they don't know about the prototype components I've been developing in my secondary lab." Naira raised an eyebrow. "You have a secondary lab?" Devin grinned. "Hidden beneath this one, I may be eccentric, but I'm not naive. When you work on potentially revolutionary technology, you always keep a backup plan." He tapped a sequence into his wrist device and a section of the laboratory floor slid away, revealing a staircase. "After you, Commander." The underground space was smaller but better organized than Devon's main laboratory. Workbenches lined with specialized equipment filled the room, and holographic displays showed complex quantum equations rotating slowly in the air. "I've been developing a more advanced prototype down here," Devon explained, moving to a sealed container in the center of the room, based on combining Astrarian theoretical models with human engineering approaches. He opened the container to reveal a suit of what appeared to be form-fitting armor, dark metallic with intricate filaments woven throughout its structure. "What is it?" Naira asked, reaching out to touch the unusual material. "I call it a quantum weave suit," Devon said proudly. "Instead of just a circlet to interface with your neural patterns, this integrates the quantum field generators and neural interfaces throughout the entire garment. In theory, it should create a much more stable and powerful connection." Naira examined the suit with a mixture of hope and skepticism. "It looks extensive." "It has to be," Devon explained. "Your natural abilities worked through your entire nervous system, not just your brain. This suit attempts to recreate that comprehensive connection." Naira ran her fingers along the intricate patterns embedded in the fabric. "How long until it's ready for testing?" "Under normal circumstances, weeks," Devon admitted. "But with the council breathing down our necks, we may need to accelerate the timeline." A ping from Devon's communication device interrupted them. He checked the message, his expression growing serious. "What is it?" Naira asked. "A friend in the Port Authority," Devon replied. "An Astrarian military vessel just requested landing clearance, scheduled to arrive tomorrow morning." Naira's blood ran cold. "Not diplomatic attaches this time." "No," Devon agreed, "someone with authority to do more than place regulatory seals." "How much can we accomplish before morning?" Devon looked at the quantum weave suit, then back at Naira. "If we work through the night, enough for a preliminary test. It won't be perfect. The neural calibration alone should take days, but it might be enough to prove the concept." Naira squared her shoulders, determination hardening her gaze. "Then we have no time to waste." As the purple dusk of Vantes settled outside, they began their work, racing against both time and the approaching Astrarian authorities. The quantum weave suit lay between them like a promise, or perhaps a challenge to the very foundations of Astrarian society. In the shadows of the underground laboratory, two unlikely allies prepared to defy not just physical limitations, but an entire system built on the premise that some losses could never be recovered. By morning, they would either have revolutionary proof of concept or face the consequences of their defiance. For Naira Keldor, former commander and outcast, the choice was clear. After months of resignation, she had found something worth fighting for again, not just her own abilities but the possibility of transformation for countless others like her, cast aside when their natural gifts faltered. As she worked alongside Devon through the night, a new sense of purpose filled her, stronger than rank, deeper than duty, and far more dangerous to those who preferred the galaxy to remain unchanged.